Billionaire CEO finds a little boy at his own father's grave, only to freeze at what he says. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Nathan Whitmore, a renowned tech billionaire known for his precision, power, and emotional distance, didn't often let sentimentality take the wheel. But today, as he stepped through the wrought iron gates of Greenwood Cemetery, a strange weight pressed down on his chest. The afternoon sun filtered weakly through ancient oak trees, casting long shadows across weathered headstones. The silence was heavy, the kind that felt permanent. In his hand, Nathan carried a bouquet of white lilies, his mother's favorite flower. It had been years since she passed, and 4 years since his father's death. He came here alone every time, without fanfare or press coverage. Today was no different. At least that's what he thought. As he approached his father's grave, Nathan stopped abruptly. There, kneeling in front of the headstone, was a small, frail-looking boy, no older than 10. The boy was murmuring something softly, head bowed, fingers curled into the sleeves of a worn-out hoodie that hung loose on his frame. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," the boy whispered, voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to bother you. I didn't know who else to talk to." Nathan's brows furrowed. There was no one else buried in that plot, no other name carved beneath his father's. He cleared his throat gently, not wanting to scare the boy. "Hey there," he said calmly. "I think you may have the wrong grave. This is my father's." The boy looked up. Wide green-blue eyes blinked at Nathan, startled but steady. He shook his head. "No, sir. My mom said this is my grandpa's grave." A pause. "Her name is Grace Carter." Nathan froze. The name sliced through the years like a jagged blade. Grace Carter. The woman he once loved with a reckless kind of hope. The woman he'd let go for reasons that, now, felt too hollow to hold weight. They hadn't spoken in over a decade. Their breakup had been messy, full of angry silence, slammed doors, and the pressure of his father's legacy drowning everything soft in his life. He knelt slowly, his voice soft, almost a whisper. "What's your name?" "Jamie," the boy said. "Jamie Carter." Nathan's breath caught in his throat. "Jamie." The boy had Grace's eyes. But the rest? The sharp chin, the dark hair, the slope of his nose. It was like looking into a mirror of his younger self. Everything Nathan thought he knew, everything he thought he had buried, shifted beneath his feet. He looked at the boy again, more carefully this time. "Jamie, does your mom ever talk about your dad?" Jamie looked down, fingers playing with a loose thread in his sleeve. "Not really. She says he left, that he didn't want us." Nathan's stomach turned. A quiet rage at himself, at his past, at the people who had kept him in the dark, began to stir. "Jamie, would you like to go get something to eat with me?" he asked gently. "We could talk. You don't have to say yes, but I'd really like to know more about you." Jamie hesitated. His face was cautious, skeptical, but something in Nathan's voice must have broken through. He gave a slow, reluctant nod. "Okay." As they walked side by side out of the cemetery, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting gold across the grass. Nathan's heart was racing with questions, regret, and something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. He wasn't sure what came next, but he knew this meeting wasn't a coincidence. It was a second chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. The ghost of truth. Nathan Whitmore sat quietly in the corner of a small cafe, his eyes fixed on the boy sitting across from him. Liam, with deep blue eyes and tousle brown hair, stirred his hot chocolate with quiet focus. The resemblance was undeniable, as if time had rewound itself, bringing Nathan face to face with his younger self. "Nathan," the boy said softly, his voice hesitant but firm, "are you really my dad?" Nathan felt something seize in his chest. He'd faced billion-dollar deals and high-stakes negotiations, but nothing had ever made him feel this unsteady. He took a breath, trying to find the right words. "I didn't know," Nathan admitted, voice rough. "Liam, I swear, I didn't know you existed. If I had, I would have never let you or your mom go through this alone." Liam looked down, his small hands fidgeting in his lap. "Mom said she tried to reach you. A lot, but no one ever answered." A wave of guilt crashed through Nathan. He remembered those years, drowning in work, delegating everything to his assistant and his father. He'd let others filter his life for him, and in doing so, he had missed the most important message of all. "I'm sorry, Liam," he said, voice breaking. "I didn't know your mom tried. I wish I could go back and change it." Liam was quiet for a moment, then glanced up with cautious eyes. "But now that you do know, what happens next?" Nathan looked at him, really looked at him. In those eyes, he saw not only Grace's spirit, but also something fragile and hopeful. He couldn't change the past, but he could shape what came next. "If you'll let me," Nathan said gently, "I'd like to get to know you. I want to be part of your life, Liam." The boy gave a shy smile, small but genuine. "I like that too." They left the cafe and walked through a nearby park. Nathan shared stories from his childhood, memories of fishing trips with his dad, his dreams, and his mistakes. Liam listened closely, occasionally offering up little pieces of himself, his love of dinosaurs, his favorite book, how he always sat near the window in class. As the sky turned gold with sunset, Nathan drove Liam home. Before the boy got out of the car, Nathan crouched to meet him at eye level. "Liam, I promise you, I'm not going anywhere this time. I want to be here every step of the way." Liam nodded, eyes shining. "Okay." Nathan watched him walk inside, the door closing quietly behind him. He stood there for a while, breath caught in his chest. The road ahead would be long, and healing would take time. But something inside him shifted that day. A beginning had taken root, and for the first time in years, hope felt real. Confronting the past, Nathan Whitmore sat in the back seat of his black sedan, the cityscape of New York blurred through the tinted windows. The rhythmic hum of the engine did little to calm the storm brewing inside him. In his hand, he clutched a crumpled piece of paper with an address scribbled in hurried handwriting. Grace's address. The revelation of Liam's existence had shattered the carefully constructed walls Nathan had built around his life. For years, he had immersed himself in the relentless world of technology and business, leaving little room for personal connections. Yet here was undeniable proof of a past he had unknowingly abandoned, a son. The car came to a smooth halt in front of a modest brownstone in Brooklyn. Nathan stepped out, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement. He took a moment to steady himself, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored suit, a feeble attempt to regain composure. Climbing the stoop, he hesitated before pressing the doorbell. The chime echoed faintly, followed by the muffled sounds of movement inside. The door creaked open, revealing Grace Carter. Time had touched her gently, but the years were evident. Her auburn hair was pulled back into a loose bun, a few strands escaping to frame her face. The freckles he once adored still dotted her nose and cheeks, though now accompanied by faint lines that spoke of hardships endured. Her hazel eyes widened in shock, then narrowed as recognition set in. "Nathan," she breathed, a mixture of surprise and suspicion coloring her tone. "What are you doing here?" Nathan swallowed hard, the rehearsed words evaporating from his mind. "Grace, I just met Liam." The mention of their son's name acted as a catalyst. Grace's posture stiffened, her grip on the door tightening. "So, you finally know," she said bitterly. "Took you long enough." "I didn't know," Nathan began, but Grace cut him off. "Didn't know?" she echoed, incredulity lacing her voice. "I wrote to you, Nathan. I called. I reached out in every way I could. All I got in return was a cold, legal document denying any responsibility, with your signature at the bottom." Nathan's brow furrowed in confusion. "What document?" "Grace, I never received any letters or calls from you." Grace let out a hollow laugh, devoid of any real mirth. "Convenient," she spat. "Your father made it abundantly clear that you wanted nothing to do with me or our child. He ensured I got the message loud and clear." Realization dawned on Nathan like a harsh spotlight. His father, Richard Whitmore, had always been a domineering figure, meticulously orchestrating every aspect of Nathan's life and the family's public image. The idea that Richard would go to such lengths to erase Grace and Liam from the picture was both shocking and, sadly, plausible. "Grace, please," Nathan implored, his voice thick with emotion. "I swear to you, I had no knowledge of any of this. If I had known—" But you didn't, Grace interrupted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. You didn't know because you didn't care enough to check. You let your father control your life, and in doing so, you abandoned us. The weight of her words pressed heavily upon Nathan's chest. He had always prided himself on his independence, his ability to carve out a successful empire. Yet, in matters of the heart, he had been a mere puppet, strings pulled by a man more concerned with legacy than love. "I'm so sorry, Grace," he whispered, the magnitude of his failures crashing down upon him. "I can't change the past, but I want to make things right. For you and for Liam." Grace studied him for a long moment, the battle between anger and hope waging war within her. Finally, she stepped aside, allowing him entry. "Come in, Nathan. We have a lot to discuss." The brownstone was modest but warm, filled with the subtle chaos that accompanies a child's presence. Toys were scattered in the living room, and drawings adorned the walls. Crayon depictions of dinosaurs, superheroes, and what appeared to be a family portrait with a conspicuously absent father figure. Nathan's heart ached at the sight. He had missed so much. They sat across from each other in the cozy kitchen, a pot of tea between them. Grace poured them each a cup, her hands trembling slightly. "After you left," she began, her voice steady but soft, "I found out I was pregnant. I was scared, Nathan. Scared and alone. But I was determined to raise our child, to give him the best life I could." Nathan listened intently, each word a dagger to his conscience. "I reached out to you, hoping you'd want to be part of his life. But your father intercepted every attempt. Then came the document, a legal notice stating you wanted no involvement, that you denied paternity. It broke me, Nathan." Tears streamed down her face now, and Nathan fought the urge to reach out. The hallway outside Harold Crane's office still smelled of leather-bound books and expensive cologne. Nathan Whitmore stood for a moment before the heavy mahogany door, his hand hovering over the handle, uncertain if he was ready to open it, to open everything it would lead to. He remembered being a boy, trailing behind his father into this same office, always told to be quiet, to watch and learn. Back then, the room had felt like a cathedral, echoing with power and decisions that shaped futures. Now, it felt like a vault where truths had been locked away, sealed behind polished wood and polite lies. He took a breath, then pushed the door open. Harold looked up from a stack of papers, the smile that spread across his face the same one Nathan had seen 100 times at family functions, investor meetings, board presentations, a smile that said nothing and meant less. "Nathan," Harold said, standing, "this is unexpected." Nathan didn't waste time. He stepped inside, closed the door with a soft click, and walked straight to the desk. "I need to know the truth, Harold." Harold blinked, but the practiced calm didn't falter. "About what exactly?" Nathan dropped a thick envelope onto the desk. Inside were copies of letters Grace had written. Please, updates, photos of Liam growing up, all of them returned unopened, some even marked with his own forged signature. Harold paled slightly. "I see. Do you?" Nathan's voice was quiet, but it carried a sharpness that cut clean. "Tell me you didn't know. Tell me you weren't part of this." Harold hesitated, then sighed, sinking back into his chair. He folded his hands together on the desk, the mask slipping. "Your father gave strict instructions," he said. "When Grace reached out, he saw it as a threat to the company, to your future. He asked me to intercept anything that might jeopardize your image. So he had you forge my name? Tell a woman I loved, who was carrying my child, that I didn't care? It wasn't meant to be cruel," Harold said, too quickly. "He believed he was protecting you." Nathan laughed, the sound brittle. "From what? From love? From being a father?" Silence stretched. The weight of the years filled the space between them. "Give me everything," Nathan said finally. "Every letter, every document. I want it all." Harold didn't argue. He opened a drawer and pulled out a file thick with envelopes and pages that had yellowed slightly with time. He pushed it across the desk. Nathan took it with shaking hands. Later that afternoon, he stood in front of Grace's door again. The file was tucked under his arm. His heart pounded with a rhythm both terrified and hopeful. Grace answered after a long pause, her face guarded. Liam's laughter echoed faintly from the back of the apartment. "I have something for you," Nathan said, holding out the file. "They lied to both of us. I never saw your letters. Not one." She took the file slowly, flipping through the contents, her eyes scanning the familiar pages. Her hand went to her mouth. Her shoulders shook. "I never stopped wondering why," she whispered. "I didn't stop caring," he said. "I just didn't know." Grace looked up, tears in her eyes. "And now you do. Now I do. And if you let me, I want to be here. For him. For you." For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she stepped back, holding the door open just a little wider. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something. It was a beginning. The boy with the questions that hurt. Nathan never imagined he'd be crouching on a cold hardwood floor, fumbling with a Lego piece the size of a thumbtack, while a 10-year-old boy lectured him on construction strategy. But here he was, shirt collar askew, a six-figure watch left forgotten on the kitchen counter, and his palms dusted with plastic shavings. "Not that." "Peace," Liam said patiently, as if talking to a very slow adult. "You need the dark gray one. 2 studs." Nathan picked the light gray one. Liam snorted. "You really need to start from square one." "I never even started," Nathan admitted, cracking a sheepish smile. "Last time I touched Lego, I was maybe 7. Liam paused, flicked a glance at him, then turned back to the half-finished Lego Space Lab. No reply. But Nathan noticed, in that quick look, there was something else. A sliver of curiosity. A tiny door creaking open. They had been spending weekends together for 3 weeks now. After Nathan had finally convinced Grace he wouldn't hurt Liam, not again. At first, the visits lasted only an hour or two. Now, they could stretch into half a day. They weren't quite family, not yet. But they weren't strangers anymore either. They'd gone to the museum, where Liam had stunned a tour guide with his knowledge of dinosaurs. Nathan had ordered meat-only pizza because that's how Liam liked it, and they ate on a windy park bench while pigeons eyed their crusts. Liam talked about little things, his science teacher, the noisy kid who sat behind him, his fear of being called out in class. And then, like clockwork, the question would come, sharp and soft, a blade wrapped in silk. That day, as they labeled Lego astronauts with made-up names like Captain Bacon and Dr. Meteor, Liam asked, voice mild as if he were talking about the weather, "Do you think, if I hadn't found you, you'd never have looked for me?" Nathan froze. He knew the boy wasn't expecting an answer, but he wasn't offering escape either. He took a breath. "I didn't know you were out there. If I had, I would have done anything to find you sooner." Liam nodded, but kept his eyes on the blocks. "I don't believe your mom ever wanted to keep you from me," Nathan added. "Someone else got in the way. I'm trying to fix that." Liam's hand stilled. Silence stretched between them like a thread pulled too tight. Then, barely audible, the boy whispered, "I used to think you just didn't want me." Nathan's throat tightened. He closed his eyes, swallowing hard. "I want you," he said, his voice rough but firm. "I want you in my life. I may have lost 10 years, Liam, but I'm not losing another day." Liam didn't respond. But a moment later, he shifted and leaned his shoulder gently against Nathan's arm. For the first time, that afternoon, Nathan drove Liam home. On the ride, Liam spoke excitedly about his dream of becoming a mechanic. "Because the guy at the garage lets me hold real tools and doesn't yell when I drop them." Nathan smiled, steering through the quiet streets, his heart pounding beneath every word. His son was talking to him, dreaming out loud, riding shotgun like he belonged there. At Grace's apartment building, Nathan walked Liam to the door. Grace stood waiting, arms crossed, expression wary but less cold than before. "How is he?" she asked. "Incredible," Nathan replied. "Sharp, funny, brave." Grace nodded, eyes softening for a brief second. "Just protect his heart," she said quietly. "I will," Nathan promised. As he turned to leave, he didn't realize he was trembling. That night, Nathan didn't return to his penthouse. He drove aimlessly through Manhattan until he found himself in front of an old brick building, his mother's first apartment before his father took her away. There was nothing left for him here, and yet he stood outside the door for a long time, remembering a different version of himself, a version that once believed in love, in family, in Grace. He whispered to the night sky, "His name is Liam, and he deserves love, even if I came too late." Nathan returned home close to midnight. On his way in, he opened his long-forgotten mailbox. Bills, flyers, and one pale blue postcard. No return address. Just a single sentence written in familiar handwriting. "Thank you for not walking away again." Gee. He held it for a long time, thumb brushing the edge, heart full and breaking all at once. The hardest journey lay ahead, not becoming a perfect father, but becoming one who shows up every day, a promise in the shortest days. Nathan Whitmore sat quietly in Grace's small living room, his eyes fixed on a cooling cup of tea that sat untouched on the coffee table. The room was still, filled only with the gentle ticking of an old wall clock. Across from him, Grace sat pale but composed, her eyes steady despite the heaviness in the air. "I need to tell you something," she said gently, her voice calm but resolute. "I saw a doctor last week. They found a brain tumor, glioblastoma. It's terminal." Nathan's world tilted. His chest tightened, and he felt the breath leave his body. He stared at her, struggling to process the words. No, there has to be a mistake," he said, his voice cracking. "There are treatments, options. We could get a second opinion." Grace shook her head, her sad smile barely holding together. "They've gone over everything. At best, I have 12 to 18 months left." Nathan stood abruptly, pacing the room, his fingers tangled in his hair. "We'll find a way, Grace. There has to be something. I won't let this." "There's something else," she interrupted softly. "Something more important. I need you to promise me something." Nathan stopped, turned. His chest ached at the sight of her, so small, so strong. "Anything," he said. "Anything." "When I'm gone," she said, her voice catching. "I need to know Liam will have someone. I need to know he'll have you." Nathan knelt before her and took her hands. His eyes were already shining. "You don't even have to ask. I promise, Grace. I will take care of him. I will love him like I should have from the start." A tear slipped down her cheek, but she smiled. "Thank you." The days that followed blurred together. Nathan showed up every morning with breakfast and left late in the evening only when Grace insisted he rest. He did homework with Liam, made him laugh, and learned the names of all the dinosaurs Liam could remember. And through it all, he watched Grace weaken, her steps slower, her silences longer. One night, while Liam was asleep, Grace and Nathan sat out on the small balcony. The city stretched beyond them, a quiet backdrop to the heavy quiet between them. "I wrote letters," Grace said, "for Liam. One for his birthdays, one for his graduation, one for when he falls in love for the first time." Nathan's throat burned. "He'll cherish them. I'll make sure of it. And this," she reached inside her sweater and pulled out a worn, leather-bound journal. "This is for him too. It's filled with stories, advice, memories. All the little things I might not get to say." He took the journal in trembling hands. "Thank you," he whispered. One morning, Grace asked Nathan to bring her to the park. Liam was at school. She wanted air, she said. Nathan wheeled her along the cobbled path, under trees just beginning to change color. She watched the leaves overhead, a smile on her lips despite the pain in her eyes. "You know," she said softly, "when I first found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. I didn't know how to do it alone. But the second I saw him, I knew I would never let him feel unwanted." Nathan's heart clenched. "I'm so sorry you had to." Grace turned her head. "You didn't know, but now you do. And he needs you." "You have my word," he said, voice cracking. "I will never leave him again." She nodded and squeezed his hand. "I believe you." That night, when Nathan helped her into bed, Grace paused. "Nathan." "Yeah." "Promise me again." He knelt beside her, her hand in his. "I promise." The chapter closes with Nathan sitting alone in the quiet of her apartment. Liam sleeps peacefully in the next room, and Grace, in the fading light, finally drifts off with a smile. The silence holds something sacred now, not just grief, but a vow, a beginning born in the shadow of an ending. The silent goodbye. The sky had been gray for what felt like weeks, and that morning was no exception. Rain fell like mist, veiling the hospital window in a curtain of pale light. Grace lay still in her bed, for tubes snaking across her thin arms. Her skin pale, but her lips curled into the faintest smile when the door creaked open. Nathan entered, his coat damp with rain, Liam trailing close behind, eyes slightly swollen from sleep, but masking it with quiet determination. He placed a small blue gift bag on the bedside table, carefully pulling out a chocolate chip cookie and 2 small plastic dinosaurs. "I found these at the shop near the hospital," Liam whispered. "You like this one, right?" Grace gave a weak nod, her eyes tired but sparkling. "Spinosaurus," she murmured. "Bigger than a T-Rex." "I didn't forget, little hero." Liam smiled, but his gaze faltered. He seemed to sense something too big to name. Nathan sat beside the bed, slipping his hand into Grace's, his fingers trembling slightly despite the familiar rhythm of fear. "She's weaker than yesterday," Liam said quietly. Nathan swallowed hard, voice caught in his throat. "Yeah, but your mom's still fighting, like she always does." That night, Grace couldn't sleep. The pain had dulled but not disappeared, and it lingered like a reminder that time was slipping away. Nathan sat beside her, one hand holding the leather-bound journal filled with her handwriting, the other gently wrapped around her hand. They didn't speak. Silence was no longer distance. It had become something sacred, a shared language of presence and acceptance. "Do you think I was selfish?" Grace asked suddenly, eyes staring at the ceiling. Nathan turned toward her, brows drawn. "No, never. I kept Liam from you for 10 years. I thought it was the right way to protect him. But seeing him laugh with you now, sometimes I wonder if I was wrong." Nathan leaned forward, resting his forehead lightly against her hand. "We both made mistakes. But your love? That was never one of them." Grace chuckled. Softly, a fragile sound but real. "You know," she whispered, "I used to dream of watching you and Liam play chess. Not in a hospital room, just in a cozy living room, near a fireplace." "There will be a fireplace," Nathan said. "There will be that room, and quiet evenings. But not with me." Her voice cracked like thin glass. He couldn't answer. And then, even softer, she whispered, "Promise me that you'll be the father he needs. Not perfect, just real." "I promise," Nathan said, his voice rough but firm. Dawn. The rain had stopped, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Nathan sat slumped in the chair, still holding Grace's hand. Liam was curled up on the windowsill, fast asleep, arms wrapped around a plastic dinosaur. Then, with a breath no louder than a breeze, Grace exhaled for the last time. No Vesping, no final words, just stillness spreading quietly through the room. Nathan felt the change in her hand before his mind could catch up. He looked up, and he knew the way you know when the soul departs without sound or spectacle. He didn't cry. Not yet. He just stayed still, gripping her hand like it anchored him to a world he no longer understood. And then, slowly, the tears came, quiet and unrelenting. When Liam woke, Nathan had hidden his grief behind a gentle smile. "Mom's still resting," he said. "Let's let her sleep, okay?" Liam nodded solemnly and walked over to the bed. He placed the dinosaur gently on the blanket. "I'll tell you all about this one when I learn more, Mom. I promise." He didn't know, but Nathan did, and it shattered him in ways he didn't know possible. That afternoon, Nathan brought Liam home. Neither of them spoke much. Nathan replayed every word Grace had written in that journal, each line a memory, a blessing, a goodbye disguised as love. That night, after Liam had gone to sleep, Nathan sat alone in his study. On the desk was Grace's journal. Tucked inside was a final note, its ink slightly smudged, her handwriting unmistakable. "If you're reading this, I'm already gone. I know you'll try for Liam. You hurt me once, but I know you'll make it right. Not for me, but for our son. I forgive you, and I love you in the quietest, most peaceful way." Nathan bowed his head over the letter, and for the first time in his life, he cried, not out of anger or regret, but out of overwhelming love. First steps into fatherhood. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the quiet living room. Nathan stood still, taking in the unfamiliar yet intimate space that had once been Grace and Liam's world. Family photos lined the shelves, Crayon drawings clung to the fridge. Every corner told a story he had never been part of. Liam sat curled on the couch, clutching the plastic dinosaur he never seemed to let go of. His eyes were red-rimmed, but no more tears came. Nathan felt a deep ache in his chest as he watched his son, wrapped in silence. "Are you hungry?" Nathan asked gently, his voice cautious but caring. Liam shook his head, his eyes fixed on the floor. "Not really." Nathan lowered himself onto the couch beside him, keeping a respectful distance. "I know this is hard, but I want you to know I'm here. We'll get through this. Together." Liam didn't reply, just gave the slightest nod. Nathan knew the grief was still too raw for words. The days that followed were quiet and heavy. Nathan tried to bring some structure to their life. School drop-offs, simple dinners, TV shows before bed, but everything felt like walking on eggshells. Every time he reached out, Liam seemed to retreat further into himself. One night, as Nathan was cleaning up after dinner, he heard the soft sound of muffled crying from down the hall. He paused outside Liam's bedroom, hesitant, then knocked gently. "Liam, can I come in?" No answer. He opened the door slowly and found Liam sitting on the bed, clutching Grace's journal tightly to his chest, tears streaming silently down his face. Nathan sat beside him, close but not too close. "You miss her a lot, don't you?" Liam nodded, not trusting his voice. "I miss her too," Nathan said quietly. She was amazing." Liam finally looked up, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why did she have to go? Why didn't she stay?" Nathan felt his heart twist. "I wish I had an answer. Sometimes life takes away the people we love before we're ready. But that doesn't mean they stop loving us." Liam looked down at the journal. "She wrote about me in here. She said I was her whole world." Nathan smiled, eyes misting. "You were. You still are." Little by little, their world began to change. Nathan learned how Liam liked his pancakes, slightly burned. They visited museums, planted a small garden out back, and started a Sunday Lego tradition. They built spaceships and towers that never stayed up, but the laughter was real. One afternoon, while they were digging in the garden, Liam paused and looked up. "I love you, Dad." Nathan froze, then knelt beside him, eyes shining. "I love you too, Liam. More than anything." They hugged, dirt smudged on their cheeks, hearts beating in sync. In that moment, Nathan knew he wasn't just trying to be a father anymore. He was one. "Would you like me to continue with the next chapter?" "I'd be honored to carry this journey forward with the same warmth and emotional depth." The first steps of fatherhood. Nathan sat on the edge of Liam's bed, the soft glow from the nightlight casting gentle shadows across the boy's sleeping face. The first few weeks after Grace's death had been a whirlwind of grief and quiet chaos. Nathan had moved into the small apartment where Grace and Liam had lived, a space filled with her presence in every corner, every framed photo, every blanket she had once folded. Everything reminded him of her, and yet everything now belonged to him and Liam. Fatherhood didn't come naturally to Nathan. For years, his life had been about control, strategy, and solitude. Now, he was learning how to make scrambled eggs without burning them, how to fold laundry without turning everything pink, how to comfort a 10-year-old boy who refused to cry, even in his worst nightmares. Liam, though brave on the outside, had retreated inward. He barely spoke at school, sometimes lashed out at classmates, and always came home with eyes too tired for a child. Nathan tried, really tried. He read parenting blogs late into the night, packed lunches with handwritten notes, and waited outside Liam's room during those long, restless nights when the boy whimpered in his sleep. One morning, as Nathan was struggling to make French toast that wasn't half raw, Liam walked into the kitchen holding a folded piece of paper. "Dad," he said quietly, "there's a parent meeting at school today. Can you come?" Nathan looked up, stunned. It was the first time Liam had called him Dad. "Of course," he replied, trying not to show how deeply the word hit him. "I wouldn't miss it." At the school, Nathan sat in a tiny chair among a sea of unfamiliar parents. The teacher spoke warmly about Liam, how he was thoughtful, smart, and sometimes too quiet. Nathan listened, proud and aching all at once. After the meeting, they walked to a park nearby, and sat on a bench under the fading light. "I miss Mom," Liam whispered. Nathan wrapped an arm around his shoulders. "I do too," he said, his voice thick. "But we're going to be okay. We've got each other now." Slowly, their routine began to feel like something real. They cooked together, sometimes successfully. They watched Grace's favorite movies and laughed through the tears. Nathan even let Liam teach him how to play Minecraft, much to the boy's amusement. One night, after brushing his teeth and pulling on pajamas, Liam came to the living room. "Can I sleep in your room tonight?" he asked. Nathan nodded. "Always." Under the soft hush of moonlight, Liam curled into his side, head resting against his chest. "You're doing okay, Dad?" Liam mumbled sleepily. Nathan's throat tightened. He placed a hand over Liam's and whispered, "So are you." They still had a long road ahead, but for the first time, Nathan wasn't walking alone. The days after the storm. The morning after the storm arrived with an uncanny stillness. The sky was a crisp, cloudless blue, as if nature itself wanted to apologize for the chaos it had caused. Nathan stood at the living room window, watching the neighborhood slowly come back to life. Fallen branches littered the sidewalks, puddles shimmered in the sunlight, and the hum of distant leaf blowers filled the air. But inside there was a rare peace. Liam was still asleep on the sofa, curled up beneath the blanket he had cried himself to sleep under. His face was softer now, relaxed in a way Nathan hadn't seen in weeks. Gently, Nathan approached and pulled the blanket higher over his son's shoulder, then stepped quietly into the kitchen to make breakfast. The soft sounds of a frying pan and the smell of eggs gradually roused Liam. He blinked sleep from his eyes, looking around like he wasn't sure if last night had been a dream. When he spotted Nathan, wearing sweatpants and struggling with a spatula, something in his chest eased. "Morning, Dad," Liam said, his voice still husky with sleep. Nathan turned around and smiled. "Good morning, buddy. I'm making us breakfast. You okay with toast and scrambled eggs?" Liam nodded, padding over to the table. He sat down and just watched for a minute, taking in this moment, this ordinary, extraordinary moment. After breakfast, Nathan suggested they head out to clean up the backyard, which had taken a hit during the storm. Liam agreed. They spent the next couple of hours picking up broken branches, scooping water out of overturned flower pots, and salvaging what they could from their small garden. They worked in companionable silence at first, then slowly started talking about Grace, about school, about Lego sets, and favorite dinosaurs. "Dad," Liam said after a while, his voice tentative, "can you tell me more about Mom? Stuff I don't know yet." Nathan paused mid-rake. He leaned on the handle, looking at his son with a softness in his eyes. "Absolutely. Your mom. She was the kind of person who noticed little things like how the light hit the leaves, or when someone looked sad even if they smiled. She was strong, but quiet about it. Fierce when it came to protecting the people she loved." Liam nodded, his eyes fixed on the ground, but Nathan could tell he was listening to every word. That afternoon, they cleaned out the hall closet and found one of Grace's old scarves. Liam picked it up gently, holding it to his nose, then wrapped it around his shoulders. "Smells like her," he whispered. Nathan had to turn away, blinking hard. The days began to take on rhythm. Nathan and Liam found themselves laughing more, falling into a new routine, one without pretense, one built entirely on presence. They cooked, or tried to, did homework at the kitchen table, and even started a nightly tradition of watching old black-and-white movies Grace used to love. One night, after a particularly cheesy sci-fi film, Liam climbed onto the couch next to Nathan, pulling the blanket up to his chin. "I used to think maybe I wasn't enough," Liam said quietly. "For Mom to stay, or for you to come." Nathan's heart clenched. He reached out and pulled Liam close. "No, Liam, never. You've always been more than enough. It wasn't your fault. Not any of it. I wish I'd been there sooner. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Liam hesitated only a moment before resting his head on Nathan's chest. "Okay," he whispered. "That was all, and it was everything. Would you like to continue with the final chapter? I'd be honored to write it for you." A new kind of home. The sun filtered gently through the kitchen windows, casting golden light across the mess that was breakfast. A cereal box lay tipped over on the counter, its contents scattered like confetti. A half-eaten slice of toast perched precariously on the edge of a plate, and a trail of syrup connected the table to the floor like some sticky breadcrumb path. Nathan Whitmore stood barefoot, a spatula in one hand, the smell of slightly burnt pancakes wafting in the air. His tie was crooked, his shirt partially buttoned, and yet he had never looked more at peace. "Dad," Liam said from the table, giggling as he watched a trail of syrup slide toward Nathan's sock. "You're going to lose another pair to maple carnage." Nathan glanced down and laughed. Is this the universe's way of punishing me for being a billionaire who never learned how to cook? More like karma for trying to flip a pancake with too much confidence, Liam said, eyes twinkling. It had been almost a year since Grace passed. Almost a year since their world cracked open, only to begin reshaping into something new, something painfully beautiful. At first, it had been messy. Grief had hung in the corners of their small home like forgotten cobwebs. Liam would disappear into his books for hours, avoiding eye contact. Nathan would fumble through simple routines, burnt grilled cheese, mismatched socks, the crushing panic of parent-teacher conferences. But now, there was rhythm. Liam had painted his room dinosaur green, covered the walls in hand-drawn sketches of Spinosaurus and T-Rexes, and even convinced Nathan to build a shelf entirely out of Legos. Nathan, surprisingly, hadn't broken it yet. Progress. "Don't forget, we promised to go to the park this afternoon," Liam said as he slurped the last of his orange juice. "You owe me a rematch." "A rematch?" Nathan raised an eyebrow. "I believe I'm the reigning champion of Frisbee." Liam snorted. "You tripped over a squirrel. It came out of nowhere." Nathan protested. "I think it was targeting me." Liam just grinned and stuffed his plate into the sink with an ease that made Nathan pause for a second, remembering how hard it used to be to get him to eat, let alone clean up. The healing hadn't happened all at once. It had come in pieces, like the slow warmth of spring after a brutal winter. Small moments, everyday choices, quiet conversations on the porch when the stars peeked out, and the grief was too big for silence. Nathan had sold the penthouse 6 months ago. It had felt like cutting away a piece of armor, but the marble floors and echoing emptiness no longer suited him. They lived in a modest 2-bedroom house now, with creaky floors and a backyard just big enough for a swing set. It wasn't much, but to Liam, it was everything. That afternoon, the park was full of life. Children's laughter echoed between the trees, dogs barked at squirrels, and sunlight danced through branches. Liam raced ahead, the Frisbee clutched under his arm like a prized possession. Nathan jogged after him, panting like an old man. "You're getting slower," Liam teased. "I'm getting wiser," Nathan shot back. "Also knees. I didn't sign up for these post-40. "Knees," Liam laughed, the sound so clear and joyful that it made Nathan's chest ache. A good ache, the kind that reminded him he was still here, still trying, still learning how to be something more than he was. They played until the sun began to dip low, turning the sky shades of gold and coral. Nathan dropped into the grass with a groan. "Next time, I'm hiring a body double." Liam flopped beside him, arms spread wide, chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. "This was a good day," he murmured. Nathan turned his head toward him. "Yeah, it really was." There was a pause, the kind of silence that invited truth to step in. "I read another page last night," Liam said softly. Nathan knew what he meant. Grace's journal. The one she'd written for Liam in the quiet hours of her decline, when her body had weakened but her love hadn't. A record of stories, advice, and unwavering affection. "What did she say?" Nathan asked gently. Liam turned to face him, blinking up at the sky. "She said that it's okay to be happy again, even when it hurts. That missing her doesn't mean I have to stop smiling." Nathan swallowed around the lump in his throat. She was right. They sat like that for a long time, watching the clouds drift past like slow-moving ships. When they finally headed home, Liam slipped his hand into Nathan's, a small, silent gesture that sent warmth flooding through him. That evening, as Nathan loaded the dishwasher and Liam sorted his baseball cards on the living room rug, the doorbell rang. It was Margaret, Grace's sister, holding a photo album Nathan had never seen. I thought Liam might like to have this, she said softly. They flipped through it together on the couch. Baby pictures. Grace in high school. A Polaroid of her and Nathan, arms tangled around each other, both laughing mid-blink. Liam leaned against Nathan's shoulder, pointing out every detail. I think you look cooler with gray hair, he said with a shrug. Flattery will get you extra dessert, Nathan replied. Margaret smiled through tears, then quietly slipped away, leaving them to their new tradition, movie night. They chose a dinosaur documentary. Liam narrated most of it like a professional, while Nathan nodded with mock seriousness. Wait, Nathan interrupted halfway through. Did you know Spinosaurus had hollow bones? Liam blinked. How do you know that? Nathan grinned. Some kid I live with talks about it nonstop. Liam rolled his eyes but smiled, and the two of them leaned back against the cushions, the flickering light from the screen painting their faces in quiet comfort. That night, after tucking Liam in, Nathan lingered by the doorway, watching the boy sleep. His hand rested lightly on the journal still tucked under his pillow. There were days when the grief hit like a wave, unexpected and consuming. But tonight the house was calm. The world felt possible again. Not perfect, but full of second chances. Nathan walked back to the living room, sat down at the desk, and pulled out a fresh notebook. He wrote the date, then a sentence. Today, Liam beat me at Frisbee. He paused, and I've never been prouder. The words came slowly at first, then faster. Notes, memories, jokes Liam told. Moments he didn't want to forget. He would give it to Liam one day, just like Grace had given hers. A circle completed, a promise continued. Because this time, Nathan would be the parent who stayed, who remembered, who wrote it all down, and who showed up every single day. A promise carved in quiet. The autumn wind whispered through the trees, scattering leaves across the back porch of the little house Nathan and Liam now called home. It had been a full year since Grace's passing, 365 days marked not by silence, but by the soft shaping of a new life. The pain hadn't vanished. It never really did. But it had settled, like a scar, tender when touched, but no longer bleeding. Nathan stood in the kitchen, wearing an apron too small for his frame, flipping pancakes that were somehow only half burnt this time. Behind him, Liam sat at the counter, hunched over a science magazine, one hand absently spinning a Lego figure on the smooth wood. The boy had grown taller, noticeably so, his cheeks less round now, his eyes more focused, but they still carried that quiet depth that reminded Nathan of Grace. You used the right flower this time, Liam remarked, barely looking up. Nathan grinned. I'd say that's an insult disguised as a compliment. It's a survival tactic, Liam quipped. They shared a laugh, soft, easy, the kind that didn't need to be forced anymore. After breakfast, Nathan followed Liam into the living room, where their lives were etched into every corner. Framed drawings on the wall, a pair of sneakers half buried under the couch, a chessboard mid-game. Grace's journal still rested on the bookshelf, its spine worn with use, often read, never forgotten. Hey, Nathan said, lowering himself beside Liam on the couch. How do you feel about taking a trip? Liam glanced up, curious. Where? The place we left for note last year. Liam was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. Okay. They arrived just before noon, the cemetery quiet except for the rustling trees. The sky above stretched blue and wide, and Liam's footsteps slowed as they neared Grace's grave. Nathan let him walk ahead. The headstone hadn't changed, still simple, still hers. Liam crouched beside it and pulled something from his backpack. A small wooden box, carefully sanded and painted with bright green leaves and stars. Inside, Nathan could see a folded letter and one of Liam's favorite dinosaur figures. I made her a memory box, Liam said, not looking up. It's got pieces of me, stuff I want her to have. Nathan knelt beside him, throat thick. She'd love it. Liam nodded and rested the box gently at the foot of the stone. Then, for the first time in a long time, he reached for Nathan's hand and held on. I don't dream about her as much anymore, he whispered. But I talk to her. In my head. Nathan blinked against the burn in his eyes. She hears you, kiddo. I believe that. They sat in silence for a long while, watching leaves dance in the wind. Finally, Liam stood, brushing off his jeans. Let's go home. On the way back, Nathan stopped by the local adoption center. Not for a child, but a dog. A shaggy, one-eyed mutt named Rascal who immediately jumped on Liam's lap and licked his face like they'd known each other for years. The laughter that burst from Liam was bright and unguarded. "Can we keep him?" he asked, eyes wide with a hope Nathan hadn't seen in a long time. "Absolutely," Nathan said. "Every boy needs a Rascal." That night, as Liam drifted off to sleep with Rascal curled at his feet, Nathan returned to the journal. He flipped to the very back and found a blank page. After a long breath, he picked up a pen and wrote, in careful, unshaking letters, "You were right, Grace. He's incredible, and I'm trying my best. Every single day." He closed the book and placed it back on the shelf. In the quiet of the night, as the house settled and the wind rustled the trees, Nathan didn't feel like the man he once was, the billionaire with empty towers and hollow victories. He felt like a father, a man who had failed, yes, but one who had also fought to be better. Tomorrow would bring its own weight. School lunches, missed buses, maybe burnt pancakes again, but it would also bring hugs, shared laughter, and bedtime stories told with voices and silly sound effects. And that, Nathan realized as he stood outside Liam's door one last time that night, was more than enough. It was everything. The true value of presence, a lesson from Nathan and Liam's story. The story of Nathan Whitmore and his son Liam isn't just a touching journey between a father and his child. It's a mirror held up to the lives of so many families today. In a world where people are constantly swept up in the pursuit of careers, achievements, and status, their story gently reminds us that success isn't measured by stock options, titles, or luxury real estate. It's measured by being present at the right time, in the right place, with the people who matter most. Nathan was once the perfect image of the modern man, wealthy, disciplined, consumed by his empire, so much so that he missed the signs that truly counted. A child who needed him, a woman who once loved him, now quietly slipping away. His awakening didn't come from a financial collapse or a corporate scandal, but from the simple, heart-wrenching question in Liam's eyes, "Why didn't you want me?" And from that moment on, everything changed. He learned to cook, even if it meant burning toast. He learned to listen, not as a CEO, but as a father learning to love, clumsily but honestly. In today's fast-paced society, countless parents trade precious moments with their children for deadlines and deals. But when the day ends, what lingers isn't the number of meetings you've attended or emails you've answered. It's the look in your child's eyes when you came home late, the hug you missed, the crumpled note that says, "I miss you, Dad." Nathan's journey doesn't sugarcoat fatherhood. It's messy. It's full of missteps, awkward silences, and quiet heartbreaks. But what makes it beautiful is that he didn't walk away. He wasn't perfect, but he stayed. He chose love. He chose to try again. And in the real world, that's the greatest gift any parent can give their child. So pause, listen, be present, because time is the one thing we can never rewind. Before we go, I'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Are you tuning in from the heartland of America, a quiet countryside, or maybe a bustling city dreaming of open fields? Drop a comment. Below, I read every single one. And if this story touched your heart, inspired you, or simply gave you a moment of warmth in your day, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another uplifting story like this. Thank you so much for being here.